Oh my goodness, I got something to say. Before I bring in the incredible Dr. Bev is in the house, Weinberg, I want to say thank you to everyone. Bev, I don't know if you know this, but I started Prop Up Tuesday just a week ago on LinkedIn. And it's a campaign to prop up. Oh, by the way, I better introduce her now that I'm chit-chatting with her. Hey, Bev, how are you?
So, Sandy Joy, I am so grateful that we are having this conversation today.
I am too. And I'm very fortunate in that I really know Bev. A lot of my guests, it's the first time I'm meeting them, but we're
Hmm.
pals. So this is going to be really, really cool. But I do want to give a shout out to everyone on LinkedIn. I started this campaign just last Tuesday called Prop Up Tuesday. And I had people
Hmm.
nominating anyone that they think is a good human being. Who is a good human being that needs props? And send me it. Wait, I don't even think you've seen it. I started it and now I got to start more jars. Look at all the names I
Oh,
got in a week.
oh my gosh.
And they're just tagging people or giving it to me privately of why this person needs a prop. Now, I never know who I'm going to pick out. So each week I just pick out an anonymous name and then I say, make sure you give them love all week long. So if you have anybody to prop up, make sure you go over there. So thank you. It was
That
really
is a
exciting.
brilliant idea.
I love giving people props. And this year, my word, Bev, is an abundant mindset.
Yes.
The give, receive, that there's enough for everyone. You didn't get that keynote, you'll get another one, a workshop,
Yes.
whatever you do. And I really wanted to stick to it. And then this came to me and I love it. So it's fun. But now let's get back to Bev. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Bev Weinberg. And this is just a teeny bit. She's the founder and executive director of Integrate for Good. What? I know. Dr. Weinberg created Integrate for Good to empower students and adults with disabilities to share their gifts through inclusive volunteerism, community leadership, and equitable employment. Her current work focuses on building strategic partnerships to enhance authentic community engagement for individuals with disabilities through collaboration with individuals and families, school districts, agencies, government entities, and corporations. Not that she's off to a challenging year at all, folks. Not that she's off, everything is just peachy cream. Anywho. All right, before we get into that, because we're going to do the positive spin on it, the one thing that Bev wants to tell women around the world and men that support us is there is incredible power in letting another woman know she's not alone. Your
Mhm.
voice, your story, and your support can be the light someone else is looking for. Never underestimate that gift. So why'd you pick that, Bev?
Yeah, so many directions. I love that question, by the way. I'm like, oh, which direction should I go with this? And for me, for this year especially, what has been most powerful for me is, even when you go through hard stuff, and everybody does, right? Everybody has their hard stuff. Knowing you're not alone. We're not looking for people to solve our big problems for us, right? But knowing that somebody is out there, thinking about you, checking in, expressing their own vulnerability. And I realized this year really the power in sharing your story. I shared this story. A lot of people ask me why, how did I get to Integrate for Good? I don't have a child with a disability. So where does my passion come from? And growing up, I wore metal braces on my legs. And I shared that story at a recent Perkiomen Valley Chamber of Commerce women's health event. I was talking about social health. And a woman who was sitting at another table came up to me afterwards and she said, oh my gosh, I experienced scoliosis as a teenager and I have never told anyone about it. But the impact it had on not making friends and feeling like I could, she said, but I think if I would have just shared what I was like, people wouldn't have been thinking like, oh, she's different. Like, people didn't want to be rude, so they ignored me. And I think knowing you're not alone and whatever you're dealing with is so powerful. And we have the power to show up and be that for another woman or anyone really.
I find that a lot of very powerful women were a little bit stubborn. We think, I can do this on my own. I
Right?
should be able to do this on my own.
Yes.
I don't know why we do. I think it's
Why do
part
we
of
do that to
motherhood,
ourselves? Why do we do that to ourselves?
right? And then when we share it and something comes back that's like, oh my God, I never thought of that. Oh, you'll do that? You're like, why didn't I reach out a long
Yes.
time ago? I don't know.
And I remember I got advice that thank goodness I didn't take when I started Integrate for Good. So I launched us back in 2019. And I
Oh,
wrote something on LinkedIn. I was asking for help, and I don't even remember what it was. If I was looking for like, help with financial things or it might have been something around marketing. And I was very vulnerable. And I'm like, hey, I'm just getting started. Who has some advice on things that you did and learned from so I don't make the same mistakes or things you recommend I do? And a gentleman in my network, good connection of mine, good friend, said, don't post things like that. Don't don't show your cards, right? Don't express your
oh,
vulnerability because you want credibility. You're just starting out and you want to show people that you know what you're doing.
hmm.
And that advice just didn't resonate with me. It didn't sit with me. And I said, I'm fine saying I launched this plane in the air and I'm learning to fly it in the sky as we go. Um, that I realized ended up drawing the people around me that I needed most because I asked, as hard as it was, even ignoring that advice, I asked for help and I asked for support. And by doing that, you invite other people to know what it feels like to give back to you and to help you because people want to do that.
They do.
And
They
sometimes you
so
you
do.
take that choice away from them when you're like, I got this, I'm good by myself. We're always better together. So I think it's so powerful when you are vulnerable and say, hey, you know, looking for help with this. Shout out to my network. Does somebody know somebody? There's so much power in expressing your vulnerability. And I think it invites other people to say, like, oh, maybe I could do that too.
Yeah,
Like when I see other women do it, I get some courage from that, from seeing other people take the lead with
yeah.
showing strength and vulnerability.
And you know something, and I found this out the hard way because I was one of those stubborn human beings, and I
Some of
was like,
those are our best learned lessons the hard way, right?
through that is that most times they wouldn't even know you needed help in that area. Like they wouldn't even
Yes.
think of it, you know? So unless you let them know, that's number one. Number two, when I finally did start reaching out to people, they were like, Sandy, it's very selfish of you. I go, okay, cool, cool, cool. What's selfish of me? You always help others. You're always doing
Mhm.
stuff for others, but you don't let us reciprocate.
Yes,
People want to reciprocate. I mean, I'm not saying
they
everyone, but
do.
most people, they want to give, receive, and it makes them feel good inside. So stop being
Yes.
so selfish. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be selfish. Yes, I'll ask her.
But that's such a great way to look at it because why take that opportunity from people
Yeah,
that want to be there for you, that care about you, that are invested in your success, that want to give back to their community or to the people that they care about. We
yeah.
take that away by not giving people that opening to come in and be part of it.
Not anymore, baby. All right, so
No.
I want to back up a bit because I did get a lot of questions for you, and one you touched on. So you said that, well, why did you do this? Because you don't have any children with special needs or considerations. And you talked about the ankle bracelet, or is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like braces on my legs. It's
Yeah.
metal braces like hips to my feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still in all, I feel like there's more to that. Like that's what else drove you to do this? Because I can get that reflection, but still in all, this is a huge leap.
Yeah, for me, and that was, early on, like kindergarten, first, second grade, some of my earliest memories as a little girl, and had to wear the chunky orthopedic shoes when little, everybody had cute little
Oh, I
shoes with
know.
bows. And I remember hating Monday. And it wasn't because I hated school. I love school. I would go back to school. In fact, I'm thinking of going back to school again, trying to figure out a way to get that paid for. But I love school, but I hated Mondays because it was gym day. And
Oh,
what our gym teacher rather would do is she would line everybody up on the half court line on the basketball court, the big room. And back then it was one of those elementary schools that has like the stage and the gym and the lunchroom, like everything's that one big room. And she would pick two people to be captains of whatever dodgeball, whatever game we're
yeah,
playing.
yeah.
And I was always the last one standing because they would pick someone on my right and someone on my left. And usually she wouldn't even let me by default go to whoever's team was next. She'd say, you know what? It's better for you to just go sit up on that stage over there. And I got to watch everybody else play. And it's
Mm.
a memory that I feel like I could go right back there when I was, 5, 6, 7 years old And I remember like learning then, like someone else has the power to sideline you. And I'm looking and I'm like, I could play that. It wouldn't be graceful. It wouldn't be pretty. It would, but I could do that. But it was decided for me, that's not for you. And I remembered that lesson and I thought, wow, there, and I would sit there and think, wow, there's so many other ways she could do this. She could count off like 1, 2, 1, 2, or cats and dogs, and they could play dodgeball together. And as a little girl, I'm like, there's got to be a better way to not have anyone feel the way I feel. Like one day, if I'm a gym teacher, which nobody wanted me to do that job ever, but one day I won't do it this way. And I would sit there and like daydream about this. But growing up, I never played a sport, even when I could have. Um, I took that in, like, this isn't for you. This is not an opportunity for you. Like, and I thought, how many people let other people decide for them what is something that they can go after and be part of, or just simple belonging. So that's really where it comes from, is that really, and I'm an occupational therapist, so I've worked over 25 years in school districts and just seen so many people with so much talent, young people graduating to a lack of opportunity, to being underestimated. And I remember what it felt like to be underestimated back then. And luckily, I don't need braces anymore. But for some people, their disability is lifelong. And I
Mm,
thought that idea of someone looking at you and because of something that's different about you, to be underestimated, discounted, counted out, sidelined, you know, it
yeah.
would be 100 times more than what I experienced. And what I experienced was horrible. So that's what I try to counteract. Like, let's look to the sidelines, which is going back to that idea of like letting people know you're not alone. Like, let
Yeah.
me invite
Yeah.
you in. Let me be the gatekeeper if I can for something you want to do that maybe, maybe you want to be part of this chamber of commerce I'm in. Do you want to be my guest that day? We met each other through NALBO. Hey, there's this great organization. Can I tell you more about it and welcome you? Some people just appreciate that invitation,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Like,
Absolutely.
I see you. I want you to be part of what's going on. I don't want you sitting on the stage watching,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I did back then. So there's so much, and we forget we have the power to be that one to invite somebody in to whatever we're doing.
So it's 2019, pre-COVID.
1 year, right? Yeah. Little did I know what was coming, but nobody knew, right? Who knew?
Nobody. But it was a great year. That's the year I sold all my health clubs. Thank you.
Timing is everything.
What made you make the shift though? Okay, because you said you're an occupational therapist for all
Yeah.
these years, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, I'm sure it was a long time coming.
Yeah, it was sitting in one meeting with the school district staff and a wonderful young man and his family. And he was graduating. He was 21. And if you live with an intellectual disability, many people choose to stay in school in Pennsylvania until they're 21. And he, it was at the end where we all sign our names on these lines that say provider of service, service provider. It could be a therapist, it could be a teacher, it could be a school bus driver, it could be a counselor, anybody. And I'm looking across the table at this gentleman, young man who I knew he was great at math. He had people underestimated him. He had limited verbal skills. So people discounted his intelligence, big mistake. But I'm like, oh, I get to be a provider of service. I'm a person on his service team. But I looked across the table and it just hit me. I said, he's always the recipient of service. When, when does he get to be a provider of service to our community, either through work, through paid employment, as a volunteer? And I said, I see it as an equity issue. Like, I get to provide service, and he and many other people like him just are seen as kind of the recipient, almost like charity mindset. And I
Mm,
said, someone should be doing something about that, which is what we say a lot of times. Like, so I'm like, well, I have, this dependable school-based job. We're two-income
yeah.
family. I have 2 kids. And I looked and looked just for something like Integrate for Good to refer families to. That's all I was looking to do. And no experience before that in nonprofit management. And I looked and looked for what I thought was worthy of the kids I was working with, and I couldn't find it. And
Ah,
then New Year's Day, 2019, I sat at my kitchen table and I turned to my husband. I said, I'm going to incorporate a nonprofit organization. What do you think? He's like, okay.
hey, honey,
His face said something different, I have to say.
you
But
know what you're doing, Bev.
I'll tell you, and you, fellow entrepreneur, right? we can be entrepreneurs, whether we're men, women, however we identify, when we have supportive people around us, right? Either our family or our chosen family. But lucky for me, my kids, my husband got on board because for 6.5 years, we didn't have a space. Now I'm in our community hub, our little community center, which I'm so lucky to have. But for 6.5 of our 7 years, I lived out of my car and out of our house. And they shared their house with the dream. There was a lot of stuff all over the kitchen table, all over everywhere. I think fellow entrepreneurs can relate.
Yeah.
It kind of gets a little all-consuming, right? So yeah, that's
Yay!
that's kind
Yay!
of, back in 2019, 2020 kind of tested, right? Do you really want to do this? Oh my gosh, how are we going to navigate COVID? But now that we're navigating something hard in this year with funding issues, I look
Nah,
back and I'm,
nah.
none of that, right? But I look back and I'm like, we were challenged with COVID. What did we draw on? What did I draw on in myself, the people around me, the kind of strength, the kind of creative problem solving? We say like hashtag too important to fail. So you figure it out. And I'm like, hey, we navigated COVID. That was, now we're pushing a different mountain. But we're like, you know what? You figure it if it's important enough, you're like,
Mm.
who do I need to surround myself with? How do I need to think? I give
Yeah.
myself like one day to feel sorry for myself. I'm like, okay, enough of that. That got you nowhere.
Well, I think you got to get it out to move on. You
You
got to.
do. You don't want to ignore feelings. And I'm like, and we're dealing with hard stuff, right? But you figure out like there are plenty of things not in our control, but sometimes we forget how much is.
Yeah.
And figuring out what can I do to move this dream forward? Because failure is not an option. We're not throwing in the towel. We're not giving up. So what are we
Yeah.
going to do?
Yeah.
And that's where innovation comes in.
Well, when you said about the entrepreneur mindset, I think about this all the time. There's something in an entrepreneur that clicks. Okay, that didn't work out. I'm going to have to go this way. And they get upset, they get angry, they
It's
get
frustrating,
disappointed.
right?
But here's the thing. Somebody said, but how? Why? Like, because some things had taken me years to break down barriers. And I said, because when you're so passionate about it, it's worth it. Some days are easy, some days aren't. Some days are brutal, some years are. But
Yeah.
bigger, it's you have to say why you're passionate about it will get you
Yes.
through. So I want to stay on that because you can see how passionate, and I'm so grateful that you formed this organization, Integrate for Good. And I love the backstory. I never knew that backstory. And it sits there and it resonates with me because you're right. You get discounted for just the observation that people make, like whether
Yes.
it's their looks, their verbal communication. Okay, so I'm not good at math, so that doesn't make me smart. All right, don't get me started
Yes.
on that. That's a whole nother podcast. But I do want to address about opening up about your own challenges, burnout, and self-doubt. And you and I were talking about this before we pushed record. And when you spread the word that you never know what ideas are going to come up and that you shouldn't do this on your own. So I want to talk about let's just get real here. You did get hit hard. You are losing a lot of funding, that grants and federal and state, and then people not sure. And oh my God, do I have any money? And giving is like, okay, well, after I pay all my employees and my kids are taken about. So you're getting hit at every single angle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a wallop. What do you think right now? How can my listeners and viewers help? What's the one big thing they could do to help you?
Yeah. So, I really believe in the power of what I call micro volunteerism. So, some people will say to me, I wish I could write you a big check. I wish I could have the capacity and time to be a board member. And I think sometimes we forget that macro level change happens one relationship, one, transaction, one hour at a time. We built Integrate for Good on donations that were $20, $25 a person. I got my first $100 check and I like danced. To this day, whether I get a check for $2 or a check that we say has a comma in it and has some other decimal
Yeah.
points, I will not deposit that check until I write a handwritten thank you note, and every donor gets that same, not that it says the same exact words, but the same amount of gratitude.
Yeah.
because we let people, and I have my first donor who would give every month, she gave $10 a month, and I worked with her at a previous nonprofit. I knew what she was making, and that $10 a month was a very big sacrifice for her to
Mm.
make that recurring donation. And she's never stopped. For 7 years now, it's been that $10 a month. And she's like, I wish it could be more. And I said, you have no idea. That $10 is a full set of business cards for a young person living with autism who we're connecting to employment.
Mm.
I said, do not feel that little bit of money, but people sometimes also forget the value of their time. And we know there are some people that can't contribute financially. So we let people know their time is so important, and we make it easy for people to volunteer. If you're interested in volunteering, an hour a month or an hour every other month and want to serve on one of our committees, help us plan an event, serve on our finance committee, our business development committee. We call them impact groups now because committee sounds boring.
Yeah.
And nothing we do at Integrate for Good is boring. So it's a great way to network. We have a lot of business passed back and forth on our boards and committees because people are meeting people,
Yeah.
building relationships, finding people who share their values, that they want to do business with each other. So it's a great way to network. But also people that just want to give back by sharing their own expertise. So we're able to save money and not have to hire contractors for all different things when somebody says, hey, I'll review that contract for you, or I'll share, we tell people one of the best ways to share is to follow Integrate for Good on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we're Integrate for Good on all three. And just letting other people know, because unfortunately, a lot of grants don't want to pay for your marketing. So we rely on people to say, hey, my neighbor has a son with a disability, or someone from my faith community, has someone, and I hear them saying, I'm really nervous. They're going to graduate high school. And then we have no idea what's going to happen when that bus doesn't come anymore.
Yeah.
That's someone to send our way because we have programs and we can provide scholarships for those programs. So that's really, letting people know, never underestimate that what you can give is enough, because it's more than enough.
Yeah.
Nonprofits, I'll speak for all of us, are incredibly grateful for any of that. And we say, like, we're not completely into one night stands, we call it. If you want to come out and volunteer for an hour and we never see you again, that's fine. We'll do that. We'll still do it. But we often find that once people come once, they're like, could I volunteer like maybe an hour every quarter? Could I bring some of my employees out to volunteer? We do corporate events so we can like build teams through volunteering. So that's probably my biggest message about nonprofit engagement, speaking for our sector. Like, you have more power than you think to make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that impact that you have, where you might discount it yourself, you shouldn't. Because like I said, $10 for us is game changing. Do we need more than that right now? We absolutely do. But we can keep things going
Yeah.
because we have the support of individuals who care in our community.
Yeah. So I really, really want to home in on the fact that you said there were so many different ways to help. And what I found is you will find the way that resonates with you.
Yes.
Like for me, I love entertaining. So we're having an event coming up May 17th. Look at the win-win. My girlfriend, singer-songwriter, wants to get out there more, Mary DiMarino, looking for an audience. I've seen people do things in homes. I'm like, okay, I want to help her. Now let's partner with a charity. And now it becomes a fundraiser, but it's fun for me. And it highlights her. So everyone and people are going to come and have a great time. And we're raising money for Integrate for Good. And I started thinking, well, there's so many other things that people could do at their local community center or their home.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be a singer-songwriter, but there's other things. Could be bingo night where you're not putting an outlay of money for the place, and you can get, because this, like, all the donations go straight to you. There's a million things people could do, and they're small, and it might be only $25 donations, but they add up.
Yeah. And then also what helps is people who didn't know about our organization before know, and
Yeah.
maybe they don't know a family who has a young person with a disability right now, but a year from now, they might meet somebody and say, you know what, I know an organization that can be of support to you.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is creating awareness about the cause, um, letting people know, to think differently about disability,
Mhm.
and to look at what people can contribute into our economy, into our local community. So, I absolutely, and then you connected me to friends that you know through Be Good Buddy that are doing
Uh,
amazing things. So that it's just like a snowball of goodness because it just, oh my gosh. And now, and I have to say, there are, people right now in our country, they might feel like a little confused, a little hopeless, a little overwhelmed, a little fill in the blank. But sometimes the best like antidote for that is to surround yourself with other people who care about what you care about. And instead of, I hear like really good people saying, I'm just tuning out. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm just going to binge watch Netflix all day long. And like love Netflix, right? But we're like, we need people to say like, these are my values. And I'm just going to find the littlest way to put them into action because we don't want to give up the power we have to make a difference in our own communities.
yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
like, okay, maybe you don't have control right now over the stock market or over, political things, but you have so much power to say, what's something I care about? And just like you did, where you're like, what could I do to help? And then we always say, when people are volunteering, right, of course, they're not getting money. So we're like, it has to be like a win for you
Yeah.
because you're not doing it for the money. So what are you doing it for? But like you said, I love to entertain. So this is a way I can give back through something I love.
Mhm.
And we share that. People will call and say, oh, hey, I'm in the financial services industry and I want to serve on one of your committees. So my first thought is always, okay, well, we have finance, we have governance, rules and regulations. And they're like, I do that all day long. I want to help you plan a fun party. I'm like,
Oh,
okay. Now, some people are like, hey, I'm an attorney. I want to donate some hours to you as an attorney to do legal work. So it's interesting how some people in their volunteering want to share their industrial talent and others want to use it as a way. We had someone join our finance committee. She said, I just want to learn more about finances. I'm, in a kind of like adjacent industry, but being part of your meetings will help me learn how to read different financials. And, so we see how people get connected, build friendships through service.
yeah.
And it's amazing to see. I think I look back and I'm like, all the good people I know right now, most of them, in my life, I'm like, I didn't know them before starting this organization. It's really been a magnet to pull people together that want to give back, that want to make a difference. And it's so uplifting because I think, who wouldn't I know if I didn't take this leap? Like, wow, a whole lot of people. I wouldn't have joined NAVA. I wouldn't have joined these chambers of commerce.
Yeah.
So it's great to see how the power when people come together to have impact and build relationships that way.
And let me tell you, and everyone knows this, when you are having, I was gonna say a suckwad, but a bad
Right?
suckwad, bad day, bad week, bad month.
And
You
we all have them.
when you help someone else, no matter what, it makes you feel better. N
Yes.
it is selfish because right
Yes.
away your joy goes way up.
Yes.
You did something for someone else. So when someone's in a bad way and they don't know a way out, so many times I go, in whatever way, go help someone. Yeah.
The best advice.
Yeah. Just do something for somebody else. Big, small, I don't care what you do. I'm telling you, you'll feel better.
Yes.
And then you'll be able to go back to your situation with a different mindset. All
So
right.
true.
Yeah. I want to make sure we get into this last tip. And you covered on a little bit, but I love the fact you said whether it's a group text, monthly coffee meetup, or online thread, build space for ongoing connection. These intentional spaces help women feel seen, supported, and safe. Tell me a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so I love my networking groups. Now I've mentioned chambers. I'm not a human resources professional, and I joined the Greater Valley Forge Human Resources Association. I love being part of organized things, and it's great professionally. And then I realized, you know what? It's great too. I've been trying to get the traction for it. People are like, I don't read anymore. I'm like, there have to be still people that read. I'm trying to start just like a women, like a business book club, but like, I mean, anybody is welcome,
Yeah.
but around books that really resonate with women. So I'm trying to do that once a month here at the hub, but bringing people together. And a great example just from this morning, I was through the Greater Montgomery County Chamber. we do something called Made in Monco. And it's like just visiting different businesses in Montgomery County and, getting to know those businesses, whether it's manufacturing. Today we went to the Village Tea House and in North Wales by the Northwestern. If you love tea, highly recommend it. And it was and men were there too. This one gentleman who's a truck driver for what dumpsters, he said, I feel like a bull in a china shop. He's like this big, like guy with a lot of
Yeah.
energy. And he's like, I don't want to touch any of these teacups. Like he's going to break things, but he was fine. It was so funny. But we just realized that so many of us that are, doing this entrepreneurial thing, we're, grabbing food and we're eating in the car and we're running place to place. And it was like the idea of like back in the day, like you would just stop and you would have tea and you would connect with people, you would talk with people. So I'm not saying everyone has to go have a tea party, although that was like
I
a
get it.
really cool, fun thing this morning. But just taking time where, hey, what's going on with you? How are
Yeah.
your kids? Oh, your daughter's in college. Like, how are things? For people to say, oh, she hasn't found her people yet. Do you and other people, oh, my daughter went through that. Like, this was something that helped. So a lot of people just have this historical knowledge. Like, sometimes we think we're the only one going through something.
Yeah.
And we're like, you know what? You're not that special. Other people have really gone through it too. Going through that, you're not alone. But
Uh,
making intentional times, like what you're doing, like bringing people together to hear music, having people just kind of tune out, like turn off the news, turn off the social media for a couple hours and just connect and talk and build those relationships. We look at back in the day, there were bowling leagues, right? There were in Ambler, there's a place called Sons of Italy. And it's like these 90-year-old Italian guys who are like, we can't convince our sons to be part of this club. And it's like, you get together, you eat, you share stories. And it's like Rotary, trying to bring in the new generation of
yeah.
Rotarians. So convincing people, people that might think they're connected because they're connected digitally, that's actually like my doctoral research is in loneliness and the power of social connection. But we realize social media makes for the loneliest generation, people who use that. I mean, there's power in it and it's important. But for people who rely on just digital connections for their connections to humanity, it's not enough. It needs to be partnered with in person. So that's why I mentioned, opportunities, just bring some people together, like in your backyard around a fire pit or, you know, meet up for something, but kind of just tune out and tune in to humans. Yeah, we see in restaurants, like all four family members sitting there on their phones,
Yeah.
tune into people. And I think, it's probably old school advice, but I think it matters more than ever when we look at how people feel disconnected. And again, we have the power to change that.
Yeah. And I don't think it might be old school, but it still works.
It still works, right?
It
For
still
Innovate for
works.
Good, some of the people most involved with us are people that show up, and see what we do. They come to the community hub, they meet the people we empower, and they see it, and they feel the energy when people of all abilities are coming together in a space to learn together, to connect, to see how we can empower both ways, up, down, every which direction. We always say, people with disabilities have a lot to offer and teach you as well. So you're not coming to
Absolutely.
help people with disabilities, right? You're coming to be part of our culture and our community.
Yeah.
And that help goes in all directions. So yeah, I think there's just so much power in getting back out there. And
Well, I can feel your passion, Bev. I swear it's coming through, man. I mean, the
well,
love.
just like you, I think that's why one of the reasons like I connected with you as soon as I met you. I'm like, she loves what she does.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that's the best compliment we can get, right? Because when we're passionate about something, we find a way to make it work. We find people that are drawn to that want to come into that magnetism and say, like, I want to be part of something. But I always love talking to people, no matter what industry they're in. I love talking to people who are passionate about anything.
I
We
agree.
hired someone to hang the blinds here when we moved into this community space. He was so passionate about window blinds. He loved them. He wanted to tell me all about like the cordless window blinds are like the best invention ever. And he's an older guy, so he's seen all different variations.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, even if this guy was like a tiny bit more money than, I'm like, he is so passionate about window blinds. He's getting my business. I invest in passion. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I want him hanging my blinds.
Right? I'm like, he is gonna like get it down to that eighth of an inch. Yeah, but I just love what you do. I love,
Oh,
your
thank
TED
you.
Talk, like how you just, went after what you wanted. And I think when people like that come together, like we realize there's just so much good in this world and there's so much
It really
hope.
is.
And that's what we have to remember during our hard days.
Yes, we do. On that note, we got to wrap up. But before we go, tell them how they can find you. And you mentioned make sure you share everything on social media.
Yes.
I know you mentioned it before. I want to home in on it. And if there's anything else coming up, or will they find that on your website?
Yeah, so we have a brand new website. Shout out to Kane Media Group. They did a phenomenal job with our new website. They were so generous and wonderful with us. So integrateforgood.org, O-R-G, integrateforgood.org. And I say go there just to see Kristen's work, if nothing else. Another wonderful connection through my female networking. And definitely you'll see everything up to date on our social media. Every Monday night here at the Community Hub, we do volunteering from 6 to 8 for people of all backgrounds, all abilities. We get a really nice diverse mix of people. So we tell people just sign up for that because we do need to cap it because of space and just like to know, who to expect and who to welcome. So people are looking to come in and volunteer that way. Through our website, you can also see how to get involved with any kind of committees or board service. And yeah, best way. And I will tell people save the date. And I know Sandy's been a wonderful supporter of our Community Heroes celebration. We just announced yesterday, 2025 Integrate for Good Community Heroes celebration will be October 23rd. And it's a Thursday night, Rivercrest Country Club Golf Preserve in Phoenixville. And we have wonderful opportunities for individual, family, and corporate sponsorship. So you can stand out for what you stand for by being part of that event. And every year it's different. Every year we try to like add some fun. We do night at the races, betting on horse racing,
That was
and
fun.
recognizing leaders with disabilities, which is the most important part, but a great chance for networking, connecting, fun. So October 23rd, we're just opening sponsorship now because it sounds like the fall is far away, but
It's
that
not. No, no, no.
sneaks up on us.
That's
But yeah, visiting our website, following on social media would be the two big ways I would say. And I'm just so grateful for this opportunity.
Yay, Bev. All right, people. Hey, I got something to say. Dr. Bev was awesome. We would really appreciate it. It means a lot. If you liked it, shared it, spread the love. There's people that would love to listen to this. And most importantly, let's right now to Dr. Bev Weinberg for all she's doing in the community. Come on, people. I can hear you clapping wherever you are. It makes my
Right
heart
back at
sing.
you, the way you lift other people up.
All right, but we're going to just give it to you, baby, because
Oh my God,
it
so,
makes me
so
so
grateful.
happy. So happy. And until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Toodles. Bye, Bev.